Welcome back, nerds. Fino here with a guide for Mr. Plus 3 months himself, Archer Emiya. As one of the game's earliest servants, he's had quite a tumultuous history, receiving a number of buffs that let him flirt with relevance. However, his year 1 jank made him inconsistent in most applications, and in the Scotty era especially, he's obviously no competition to Atalanta. But on the Japanese side, he finally got a game-changing buff, one we're slated to get later this year. So with that said, let's get a good look at the Emiya we've got, and the Emiya we're going to get. But before I continue, I'd like to thank Scout4343. He picked this as a stream goal and it got met, so here we are. Emiya is one of the servants you can get from the tutorial gacha, so if you're a new player watching this, I strongly recommend running through his multiple interludes and strengthening quests as quickly as possible. The current slate of upgrades will, among other things, turn his underwhelming clairvoyance into the much more useful Hawkeye, a massive star generation and crit damage buff with both effects lasting for 3 turns. Also, Magecraft becomes projection, and to really understand how urgent this buff is, Emiya has a Buster Noble Phantasm by default. You really don't want an arts buff for that. But that begs the question, doesn't it? Why the hell did Emiya have an arts mana burst in the first place? The answer is in his card loadout. Triple arts, meaning Emiya suffers from the bane of many year 1 servants, deck NP mismatch. The inability to bust your Brave Chain off Unlimited Blade Works is pretty obnoxious, considering one of his skills is dedicated to his crit synergy. The end result of this kid is that while he's okay, serviceable in a lot of situations, his good strategy as I understand it relies on a lot of RNG. The idea is to pop Hawkeye. If you have 2 arts cards, then you use projection and go for NP double arts to build towards a second NP. Otherwise, you pray for a Brave Chain on the following turn, pray he actually gets the stars, pop projection, and then go for big crits. Now as an archer, Emiya does benefit from inherently high star absorption, but it's not a sure deal, and without any dedicated skills, you can get tripped up by star distribution RNG. Now to understand exactly where he's getting those stars from, we have to look at his Noble Phantasm, Unlimited Blade Works. It features a monstrous hit count of 10, which will be absolutely broken on anything that's not a Buster Noble Phantasm. Hold on to that tidbit because it'll be on the test. As it is, the refund is abysmal, but you can still exploit that property for star generation. That's why you want Hawkeye up for Unlimited Blade Works. It's a neat trick, but again the follow-up relies on a lot of RNG. Otherwise, Emiya runs out of gas, and while he can brawl a little bit, he's got an evade defense combo, building a second Noble Phantasm from scratch is a huge pain. Then comes Emiya's 3rd strengthening quest. This turns projection into Trace On. Yeah, you've got some modest upgrades to the rainbow buffs, but the real prize is a Space Ishtar style mechanic that lets you pick between arts and Buster for Unlimited Blade Works. Remember what I said about that hit count? Yeah, it's busted on an arts NP, meaning Emiya can get a 100% refund with only a little bit of extra NP gain. This means with the right setup, Emiya can 3-turn loop farm. Now this does come with a number of caveats. First of all, Trace On only lasts for 1 turn. After that, Unlimited Blade Works goes back to being Buster. This means that if you're running Emiya as your sole attacker, you pretty much need a K-Scope. A max limit broken Super Scope for what I consider an efficient setup, though a 0-star with some plug suit shenanigans might be able to get you a functional team. You pop Hawkeye on turn 1 because it's all upside, Buster UBW on turn 1, and get full charge off your supports on turn 2. Waver and Castoria are the most relevant options, though Reynas and even Koyanskaya get the job done. With the Case-Wiles duo, you may want some security from the Fragment of 2004 Mystic Code. From here, you pop Trace On, switch UBW to Arts, and NP to kill Wave 2. If your NP level is low or your damage otherwise suspect, you should follow it up with Hawkeye boosted Emiya crits. On turn 3, you pop any remaining offensive buffs and go for a final Unlimited Blade Works. This setup, especially the Castoria variant, will let you blow away the second wave, but leave you weaker on Wave 3. You don't have Trace On's rainbow buffs, and Castoria's arts buffs don't help a Buster Noble Phantasm. Combined with the fact that you're running a K-Scope in the first place, you may find your 3rd turn damage woefully inadequate. One solution is to run Arash as your 1st turn servant. This lets you run a more aggressive CE on Emiya and makes the charge requirements more lenient. The downside is that in most events, you're sacrificing a relevant CE to give Arash enough starting charge. Not the end of the world for low econ setups, but something to keep in mind. A far funnier option is to run Emiya with the future Buster support Koyanskaya of Light. She has a 50% battery that doubles as a 2-turn cooldown reduction. With 2 of her, that's 4 turns off every Emiya skill. Trace On has a 5-turn cooldown, meaning that with another turn passing from just using your NP, it's already off cooldown on turn 2, letting you Arts NP a 2nd time. Not only can you run Black Grail in this setup, but in contrast to the Castoria version, your 3rd turn is actually very strong, because Koyanskaya gives Buster buffs. Of course, the irony is that of your 3 Noble Phantasms, only that last one gets fired off in its Buster form. The future Emiya has a lot of interesting tricks up his sleeve, and being able to loop at all is of course an accomplishment for an AoE servant. But you can never forget that despite all his modernizations, Emiya has a lot of year 1 jank baked into his kit. If your run ever goes off script, it can easily turn into a massive clusterfuck as you fall back onto the rest of his kit. It's a nice crit setup, but only if you have the right luck. Card and star RNG can be frustratingly uncooperative. Given the variance in its turn-to-turn damage and the advent of high-stat 90+ nodes, you can find yourself rolling the dice quite often. Either that, or you'll have to consider the benefits of Grails, Gold Voes, and extra NP copies. The problem with straddling the line between Buster and Arts is that you're not going to be the best in either category, so he's not going to overshadow John Archer or even Ishtar once she gets her Fox Buddy. But is losing to a pair of specialized 5 stars something to be ashamed of? No, not really. At the end of the day, there's a small pool of looping archers, and for all of Emiya's jank, he is one of them. Can't take that away from him. Not to mention he and Atalanta are currently the only ones available year-round. Maybe he becomes a bit less enticing once Zenobia enters the picture, but that's a ways off. Much closer is the upgrade which, if we're going by JP's schedule, should be out in August. If you have the tools to draw out his strengths, that's when Emiya's gonna pay big dividends. So you know what? Mr. Dabbles and everything gets a thumbs up from me. Thanks for watching everyone. Like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more, and come watch me on Twitch where I stream every weekend, 3 PM Pacific time, Friday through Sunday. Might do some Bazette fishing, so stop on by to see how that goes down. Till next time.